Okay, well, to be respectful for everyone's time, I'm going to start the session, and then those who come in, we'll just write down a chat for them to do the check-in. So again, thank you for coming, everyone. This is our first of the Pursue Your Passion series, and I am Mrs. Pashia Escoto. I'm the career specialist here at Portola, and looking forward to this wonderful session. Headlining this session will be Mr. Cyril Yu, and he will be talking with the title In Pursuit of Justice. I'm going to hand him the virtual mic. Before I do so, please again, make sure you do the check-in using the tiny URL on my screen, or as well in the chat I have posted it. And please be respectful throughout the whole session, making sure that you are being, just really kind and respectful towards the speaker, okay? All right, take it away, Mr. Yu.
Thank you, and thank you all for being here. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about my presentation in the pursuit of justice. And I am a Senior Deputy District Attorney at the Orange County District Attorney's Office. I've been at the DA's office for about 20 years, and I've been a lawyer for about 24 years. But let me start kind of going all the way back. So way back when I was about your guys' age, when I was a sophomore in high school, my dad actually sat me down and asked me, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? And at the time, I really didn't have an idea. I had some ideas as to what I didn't want to do. I really wasn't great with bio and didn't really want to get involved with that type of stuff. So I'm like, I'm not going to be a doctor. But one of the things I thought was interesting was maybe become a lawyer. But I didn't know any lawyers. My family didn't know any lawyers. We didn't have any lawyers in the family. My dad worked with some lawyers. So when I suggested to him, maybe I'd be interested in a career in law, that's kind of where he's like, all right, we can work with that. And so he kind of got me started. So if I could have the next slide, please. And one of the things he did was he gave me a couple of books. One of the books he gave me was a book of lawyer jokes, because, you know, if you're going into the profession, you got to get used to the lawyer jokes that are coming. But he gave me two other books. One was called The Art of Cross-Examination, and the second was The Art of Questioning, which are books that I still have today. But both of them really kind of got me interested in what the job of a lawyer was. They were, you know, little vignettes of things that lawyers had done in court. And it gave you kind of an idea of the type of work that a trial lawyer would be doing. And that really got me interested in becoming a trial lawyer. And so that's how I got started, at least in my mind. So what are the steps you need to take? Next slide, please. Well, everybody knows you got to go to law school. But is it all cracked up that it's, you know, it's shown in the movies? Is it nearly as fun as Harvard Law School? Not easy to get to, according to Elle Woods. It can be an interesting time, but I will tell you that law school for me was one of the best educational experiences that I've ever had. It was being with people that were just as passionate about the law. We had some of the most interesting legal discussions that I've ever had in my life. I mean, they were really thoughtful, smart people having really great conversations. We had really great professors, and it was a really good experience. And so I certainly got a lot out of law school. So how do you get into law school? Next slide, please. So law school has some basic requirements. The first is you do need to have a bachelor's degree. So this is something that is graduate level work, meaning you have to go to an undergraduate program first for college, which I'm assuming some of you are in the process of or are thinking of applying to college in years to come. But there isn't a particular major that law students do when they're an undergraduate. I've listed some of the ones that are common. Political science is the one that I did, but also psychology, criminal justice, history, English, economics, philosophy, anything in the arts and humanities and sociology. But, you know, I also had law school classmates that did completely different things. They came from completely different careers. And so some people came out of, you know, bio, some people came out of more of a technological or like a tech type of focus on computer science. So it doesn't really matter what major you take when you're in college, but you do need to go to an undergraduate program. You do have to take the LSAT. Some schools do accept the GRE as an alternative. And the LSAT's kind of like, you know, the SAT or the ACT, but it's a little more focused on logical reasoning and that type of stuff. So it's a multiple choice exam that has several parts, including logical reasoning, analytical reasoning, reading comp, and then there's some optional writing samples as well. It's scored on a scale of 120 to 150, and the average score is about 150. And that will also, no different than when you're trying to get into a college, kind of give you an idea of what law schools you might be able to go to. For the application process, when you're applying to law schools, you're going to need a letter of recommendation, you're going to write a personal statement, and you're going to need college transcripts. Again, very similar to the type of stuff that you would need to put together when you're applying to college as a high school student. Next slide. And so in California, first off, there are law schools all over the entire country, but I'm going to talk mainly about law schools in California. And there are two types. There are ABA accredited and California accredited law schools. And the big distinction I'll explain in a bit when I get to the California accredited. But here are the ABA accredited law schools. As you can see, there are a lot that are in the state of California. And the ones that I've highlighted that you can see on the screen, Chapman, UCI, Western, are all law schools that are very close to where you're at here in Orange County. Next slide. And these are the California accredited law schools. And so as you can see, there's a lot of those as well, and they're scattered all over the state. These are different in that they're not accredited by the American Bar Association. However, they have accreditation from the state of California. So what does that mean? If you want to practice law in the state of California, you're fine or going to one of these law schools. But if you want to practice somewhere else in another state, those states aren't going to necessarily approve of what the degree that you're getting from the California accredited schools. And so there's kind of a process that makes it trickier. So that's the major distinction between the two. If you're planning on staying in California, you got a lot more options. But if you're going to practice somewhere else, you might want to be looking at one of the ABA accredited law schools because you're going to get the ability to be able to take the bar in those other states without any issues. Next slide. So here are the exams that you're going to have to worry about. So first off is this thing called the baby bar. It's only for first-year law students, and it's only for people that are going to California accredited law schools. It's not a requirement for any of the ABA accredited law schools. It is a one-day exam. It has 4 essays and 100 multiple choice questions. But you're taking this during your first year of law school. So you're going to be in school for a while before you take this exam. But in order to pass and become licensed as an attorney, you have to take 2 other exams. One is the MPRE, which is the multi-state professional responsibility exam, to make sure that you are an ethical person, an ethical lawyer. It's a 2-hour test. It's multiple choice. And it's really actually not that complicated. The more complicated exam is what we call the bar exam. In order for you to become an attorney after you graduated from law school, you do need to sit for a bar exam. The bar exam in California is 2 days long. Other states have bar exams that are 1 day long, others are 2 day long, and they're structured sometimes the same, sometimes very differently than California. California, for the first day, you have 5 1-hour essays that you're completing, as well as a 90-minute performance exam. You also have the multi-state bar exam, which are 200 questions, multiple choice on day 2. That particular exam is administered to everybody across the country on the same day. So they always have it on a Wednesday, and it's the exact same exam that everybody across the nation is taking. There are 2 bar exams that are scheduled during the year. One is in February, and the second one is in July. Currently, they're being administered via Zoom, but who knows, by the time you guys get through, maybe a number of years down the road, what that situation is going to be. Next slide. So what happens after you pass the bar and you're now a lawyer? What kind of lawyer do you want to be? So for me, when I was coming up through law school, these are the types of things that were going on. The picture on the left is the People versus O.J. Simpson. My first year of law school, that is when that trial was going on. And so every day, everybody would flock to our lounge, our TV lounge that we had at the law school. Yes, it was back so long ago that we had to go look at a TV. We couldn't pull it up on YouTube or stream it or anything like that, but we would all sit and huddle in front of the TV screen to watch this trial be broadcast on TV. And so it was a great example of what a prosecutor and what a defense attorney does. So the man on the right that has his hands up kind of like this, that's Christopher Darden. He was one of the lead prosecutors on the case. The woman sitting at the table is Marcia Clark, also a prosecutor. And the attorney on the far left, as you're looking at the screen, was one of O.J. Simpson's attorneys. The other photograph you have is a picture of John Gotti. He was a mob boss in New York, and there were a lot of federal and state prosecutions going on against the mafia in New York during that time period as well. And John Gotti was one of those guys that people thought would never be convicted, but he eventually was convicted of various crimes. Next slide. And the other thing that was going on during that time period was there were a lot of movies and TV shows that were about the law, and they were really fun and inspirational about the type of work that trial lawyers did. And in each one of these photos that's there are people that were involved in criminal law. You had A Few Good Men, which was about the military criminal justice system. You have My Cousin Vinny, which is, a criminal case involving, a defense attorney and how fun that can be. And then Law and Order was a show about, Manhattan prosecutors, and it was a show that I would watch every afternoon when I was studying for the bar exam. So I'd go to class or study in the morning, and in the afternoon, I would watch 1 or 2 episodes of Law and Order on TV as a reminder of why it was that I was taking the bar exam. And they were about how to be a good prosecutor. Next slide. And who are some other prosecutors you might be familiar with? Well, there's Sonia Sotomayor, who's an associate justice on the U.S. Supreme Court. She was, back in the day, an assistant district attorney with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office in New York City. And then there's the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, who started off her career as a San Francisco DA. She became the elected San Francisco DA. She then eventually became California Attorney General before becoming a state senator and then eventually Vice President of the United States. Next slide. And here's the other thing that I love about being a prosecutor. You are held to a very unique standard. And why I entitled this talk, Pursuit of Justice. That is our job. It is very rare that you have someone in the legal system whose job is to seek justice. And there is this decision, United States versus Berger, which is a Supreme Court decision from 1935, a long time ago, which talks about the roles and responsibility of a prosecutor. That a criminal prosecution is not that it shall win a case. That's not what we're here to do, but rather that justice shall be done. And so as a prosecutor, you are a servant of the law. And we have a twofold aim, which is that the guilt shall not escape, nor innocence suffer. It is as much his duty to refrain from improper methods calculated to produce a wrongful conviction as it is to use every legitimate means to bring about a just one. And so we have a tremendous responsibility as prosecutors to seek justice in everything that we do and to pursue cases when we believe that it is appropriate, and to also seek punishment that we feel is appropriate in each case, both from a leniency standpoint and from a severity standpoint. Next slide. So as I mentioned at the beginning, I've been doing this for about 20 some odd years, and normally my cases don't make it into the headlines. But when you've had a career as long as mine, on occasion, my cases will end up in the headlines. So here are just a handful of some of the ones that have made the local news. I've prosecuted gang cases, and so including homicides. I prosecuted domestic violence cases, both against law enforcement officers as well as other regular individuals that have been involved in that. And to all kinds of other random cases, like the one on the bottom involving a party bus full of people that basically looted a 7-Eleven in Huntington Beach, where I prosecuted 24 individuals for that particular crime. So I've had a wide variety of cases that are just kind of highlighted here a little bit, but it's been a fun and rewarding career. Next slide. And so here's a picture of into what the Orange County criminal justice system looks like. On the upper left is one of our brightest judges that we have, Judge Prickett. He was a former prosecutor and has been on the judge for a very long time. He actually is a judge down at the Harbor Justice Center, which is in Newport Beach, just on the border here with Irvine, very close to UCI. The courtroom that is being shown here in the 2 different pictures is our courtrooms that are in Central Court, which is our biggest courthouse. It's located in the heart of the county in Santa Ana. And here you have one room showing a bunch of people being called in for jury duty. And so someday you might find yourself sitting in one of these seats being called upon to do your civic duty. And the photograph on the left is a picture that was taken during the pandemic. We have stayed open for business during the pandemic. This is a picture taken very early on when we weren't quite sure what was going on. But the courthouse looks radically different. It is open for business still, but everybody is required to wear masks when you're inside the building. Next slide. And for more information, you are welcome to check out some books. Here are 2 books that I have enjoyed. One is called Rough Justice. This is a book that was written way back in 1990 by a man who was a prosecutor in the Manhattan DA's office for 3 years. And it really tells the tales of like what it looks like from day to day as a prosecutor, handling, all kinds of cases. And in New York, they had something known as night court, which means that there were cases being prosecuted at nighttime. There's also a TV show called Night Court, what you probably, I can't find anywhere, but it was a really, really great great book and an introduction for me as to what being a prosecutor was like. Preet Bharara is a U.S. attorney, worked for the federal government. He actually stepped down right before the, or during the early part of the Trump presidency. But he ended up writing a book about his experiences prosecuting cases as on the federal side. Next slide. And here's some more information in terms of websites. You have the State Bar of California, the California District Attorneys Association, which tells you kind of more about what the what DAs do, the Orange County District Attorney's Office, which is where I work, and then our local courts here, if you want to find out what's happening in the courts. One of the things that I enjoyed during the pandemic, which unfortunately they did stop because we have opened the courts more, but they used to live stream court proceedings, which is a really unique thing that they started doing during the pandemic to ensure that we had public access, that people could see what was happening in the courts. So unfortunately, they have stopped that. I am hoping at some point they bring that back because I thought it was a really great way of allowing people, whether you're attorneys or just the public or even students, to see, hey, what's going on in a courtroom? You know, what does a trial look like? And it was a really great opportunity for people to see that without really having to go to the courthouse itself. Next slide. In terms of ROP or CTE classes, what might be helpful if I'm interested in a career in law? Well, you know, there aren't really any particular types of things I would say that you have to take, but here are some suggested ideas based on kind of the type of law that I think would be interesting for a prosecutor. Really kind of getting your presentation skills up to snuff and being creative, because a lot of what we do is thinking outside of the box. How do you convince 12 people to see the same way that I'm trying to present my case? And I can't just tell it to you. That's not interesting. So it's really about thinking creatively of like, what medium can I use? And so photojournalism, video production, those are all things that we get used to using and kind of visually presenting things. Being familiar with digital media arts or even broadcast news, how they present themselves is a great way of doing it. Entrepreneurship, if you're going into other aspects of law, it's a great idea to understand how business works, or how, if you were running a law firm, how would you do that? And then just kind of the basics of criminal law. Crime scene investigation is a great idea of kind of laying out like what are the steps that happen during a criminal investigation. So these are all classes that might help you get an idea of what types of things a lawyer might be doing in court or as part of being a lawyer. Next slide. And at the end of the day, you know, like I said, I love being a prosecutor. You know, it's fun being persuasive and being able to convince people as to why my case is right. But again, more importantly, it is about seeking justice. It is, like I said, the only job as a lawyer where your entire focus is on justice, justice for all, justice for everyone involved, and really representing, you know, the people of the state of California and for everything that it stands. And so I think it's a great job, and I'm happy to take any questions that you have. Next slide.
Thank you, Mr. Yu. So with that said, we are in the questions area. If any students, even staff, have questions, this is the time to ask away. And please just, you know, unmute yourselves and just, you know, ask your question or put in the chat, whatever is easier for you. Okay, I have a question then.
All right.
Mr. Yu, where do you see your kind of career pathway, and the passion you have for it definitely is evident, but where do you see yourself in maybe like another, you know, 5 years from now? Like, will you still be doing what you're doing now, or is there like another pathway that you want to explore?
That's a really good question. I don't really know the answer to that at this point. I certainly do see myself being a prosecutor, you know, continuing to be a prosecutor. At some point when I am tired of being a prosecutor, I do have other options. You know, one of the things that attorneys do, especially those that do my particular line of work, some of us do try to become a judge, for example, you know, taking our skills and going to the bench, because we have kind of accomplished or achieved a lot of that knowledge you would need to have to be a good judge. But there's a lot of other things that I could do. One of my other hats that I wear is I'm actually on the Irvine Unified School District School Board. And so I've enjoyed my time working with the district and doing that type of stuff. So it may very well be that I'm off doing more things along those lines, but at this point, I really don't know.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Serena. I just had a few questions. I'm a junior currently at University High School, and I have been trying a lot of new things. I'm very interested in law. I've always been. like how you said, I've also developed that love for law at a very young age. Um, Currently, I'm taking 2 RP class. 1 RP classes for administration of justice, and I'm going to be taking CSI next semester. I was also planning on taking some dual enrollment classes, which are some opportunities that IOSD gives to their students to take some classes at IVC. I was planning on taking those classes. I was actually planning on doing political science and sociology. I'm currently in AP psychology, so I really wanted to try the sociology side.
Right.
And I also wanted to see what are some other opportunities that I could take, or other classes where I can take to be more closer to law, to have that experience, to sort of either volunteer work or anything, like even what you mentioned, I don't remember the exact term, but where you could go to court and see how like a basically how it is in a courtroom. Those opportunities are what I'm really looking forward to, but I don't really know how to do it. What are your suggestions for a student my age to do, basically?
I don't think uni has a mock trial team. Could be wrong on that. If they do have, that's certainly something that you can get more of some experience in regards to what it looks like to put a case together. If you want to get experience around the courthouse, like I mentioned, the courthouse doors are open during the week, and there is a courthouse that's not too far from here. If you go past UCI as you're driving on campus and you just continue on, you'll eventually get to the what we call the Harbor Justice Center, which is kind of on the Irvine Newport Beach border. And there are court hearings that are going on all the time, and you can certainly pop in and kind of just observe what's happening. I think there is a benefit to that. And the thing about it is that the court and the judges and the court staff always love to have high school students that come through. There are some high schools, I don't think any of the ones in Irvine do this, but they'll do like little court tours. They'll bring students in during the day and they'll get a tour. And then we do have court staff that do specifically take people around for that. But even if you're just going to a courtroom, kind of watch what's going on. And when they take a break, they love talking to high school students. I have seen so many judges just pause the proceedings and go, hey, we got some people sitting in the audience. Can you tell us who you are? And the students will usually introduce themselves, and the judges will say, well, let us know if you have any questions. And they're always happy to talk about stuff. The other thing is that lawyers love to talk about their stuff. They love to talk about their work. So you just need to find a lawyer or two to talk to, and I'm sure they will talk your ear off about what that is like. There unfortunately aren't a lot of volunteer opportunities for high school students as it relates to law related activities. You'll find more of that when you get into college, and certainly by the time you get into law school. But there just aren't as many of those opportunities that are available. But if you are familiar with anybody that runs a law firm, I do recall that the first law firm that I worked in, there were some high school students that knew people that ran the firm that were able to get summer jobs in a law firm, and they were able to kind of see kind of how that whole process worked. Doesn't always tell you a whole lot about the criminal justice system, but it's a great opportunity to just kind of get an idea. And it sounds like what you already are signed up for, and you've got a lot going on. I think those are all great things that will move you in the direction of of continuing to develop your interest in the law.
Yeah, I actually tried taking some internships or volunteer works at some law offices, but I was this was the summer that passed, so I was younger, and they definitely didn't see my age of right age to be able to work or be in that environment. But yes, I'm really interested in taking more steps into seeing how the process actually is and everything. You mentioned a courthouse that is closer to us.
Mm-hmm.
What is the name of that courthouse?
So we call it the Harbor Justice Center. So if you go to the occourts.org website, that'll show you where the different courthouses are in Orange County, and that's the one that's the nearest to you. The other thing that I'll just mention, when I was in high school, I actually volunteered to work in a state assemblyman's office. And the reason why I mention that is, being around even elected officials and being around people that are involved in government gives you an idea of how laws are made and how the system kind of functions. And you'll be around people that are talking about law and aspects of law. So if you go from there into, for example, political science, as you've mentioned, it's a nice connection between the two. I think it's always important for lawyers to have an understanding as to how the overall legal system works, from creation of laws by the legislature, being enacted by the governor, being implemented on the local level, whether by a DA's office or elsewhere. There's a lot of different components to it, and having a really good understanding as to how government functions. I mean, even coming up, I didn't really understand how complex our society is and how the different pieces of the law kind of fit together until I got further along into my college career. But having that opportunity to work in a legislative office kind of gave me a window into some of that. And so, there are obviously opportunities that are available, locally here. We've got Senator Dave Min, who's our state senator, State Assemblywoman Cotty Petrie Norris. There's other people that are around that'll kind of give you that opportunity. And they oftentimes will have opportunities for high school students to volunteer and work in their offices.
Thank you so much. This was very helpful. Thank you for the presentation and
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
And good luck.
Okay, is there any other questions we have? Thank you, Serena. Is there any other questions we have, students? If not, please make sure you do the exit eval. I have in the chat and as well on the screen here. I'm gonna leave up a little bit. If there's no other questions, we can thank Mr. Yu for being here with us today. And this is recorded, so it will be posted on the same page where you registered for this QIP, and so it'll be there if you need to access it again. If not, Mr. Yu, would there be any way that students would if they wanted to kind of like know more about law, do you suggest either they contact of course OC courts, but would they be able to kind of get access to you somehow if possible?
Sure, absolutely. So you can email me one of two ways. You can email me at IUSD, so it's Cyril, Cyril @iusd.org. Just realizing, why don't I type that in the chat? The other email address I have is my work email address. So I'm going to type that as well and send it in the chat. It's cyril.u@da.ocgov.com. And I'm happy to talk to you at any time. And if you do manage to find yourself anywhere close to the Central Courthouse in Santa Ana, I'll be happy to give you a tour.
Perfect. Thank you again, Mr. Yu. We really enjoyed having you, and thank you for taking time to chat with our students and with us. I did not know all the things that went on. Totally appreciate it. All righty, guys. So if you're all done, if you've done the eval, you can zoom out. If not, you can hang out and ask Mr. Yu more questions, but I believe our session is over. I'm gonna stop sharing. All righties. Okay, kiddos, if you want to zoom in or zoom out, you can do so this time. Or if you have more questions, you can please feel free to, but we are basically done. All right. Okay, thank you, Cyril. Really appreciate your time. I'm sure you're a busy person, so I wanted to quickly tell you, I also work at the district office, so I do see you sometimes. I'm one of the front reception people.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, okay. That's my other job.
Okay, all right. I'll be sure to keep an eye out for you when I go.
Oh, same here. I'll say hello to you next time. But thank you for coming.
Yeah, great. And nice meeting you as well, Monica.
Thank you. Nice meeting you.
All right. Bye.
Bye. And then continue. Yes, continue. Yeah. And end the meeting.
End a meeting.
Oh, yeah.